Thank you all for being here. My name is Maura O'Shea, and I am the vice chair of the Warner Foundation Board. And it's such an honor, really, to introduce my dear colleague, friend, inspiration, Susan Warner, the chairman of the board, as you know, J.C. Carter, the filmmaker of this incredible film about Jack Warner. And we're happy to have some questions from all of you today, but I'd first love to just let Susan, she has some questions for you, I think, right?
Well, I wanted to, whoops, is this on? Wanted to thank you all for being here, and I'm just curious to know how many of you are coming because you had met Jack and did know him, and how many came to learn about him, you know, firsthand through this film. So how many of you, if you could raise your hands, knew Jack?
Wow.
Oh, wow. That's wonderful. And how many, this is the first exposure you've had? Okay. Oh, almost half and half, maybe 60-40. Well, you know, I first met Jack in the early 1990s when I came here with my first husband to work at the university. But, you know, recognizing what a larger-than-life person he was, when I came back in 2003 to help him with the museum, I was just astounded that there's no book about him, that he had never taken the time to talk about himself and all of his accomplishments, and people loved him. And I just always had felt, you know, other people that I knew had made sure that their legacy would continue. They had their own books written about them, and we were just, as a foundation, kind of committed to seeing that this important man's legacy would live on. And I hope this film helps to bring audiences a better awareness of who he was and what all he has done, and to keep him sort of alive. And as the new people that, you know, drive down Jack Warner Parkway and wonder who was this man, that we could show this film more often and widely, so that people can remember him and be inspired by what he did with his life, and especially, as he said at the end, by being a better American.
Yes, and I'd like to ask JC about the process of making this film. Can you get some insights?
Well, there wasn't anything easy about making this film at all. We actually started this film, believe it or not, in 2020, March of 2020. And if you remember what happened in March of 2020, the country shut down for almost a year. So we had just started filming in Tuscaloosa for about 2 weeks, and the pandemic hit, and that threw us off schedule for a long time until people were available again. But just when we were planning the film, talking with Susan, the amount of people to try to talk to and try to get them while they were available, and the coordination of getting all those people, not just only here in Tuscaloosa, but we traveled, to Washington and Lee. We were in New York, a few other places. In Connecticut, yes, thank you, Maura. So we tried to get as many people as we could, and there were plenty amount of people that we weren't able to get because of scheduling and things like that. But and then once we had all the information, how do you put the story of Jack's life together and try to tell that within a time frame that would be viewable? So it was a lot of tough decisions were made as far as like how much we could include of everyone. But I think we did a pretty good job of rounding it off and telling a good story of Jack. But it was amazing to make. It was amazing to meet a lot of those people and to hear them talk about. I've known Jack since 2004, and Susan, and I sat with him many times and heard his stories. But to hear other people talk about and all these new stories about him, it goes on forever. It's a real joy.
I guess I wanted to say one other thing, that we wanted to let you know that his legacy is continuing through the foundation, even though the museum, the art was sold, that wasn't Jack's idea, but we could still continue to promote his his desire to help teach American history better by understanding and learning and looking at great works of American art, which is what the foundation is continuing to do now through sponsoring professional development seminars for social studies teachers throughout the nation. Lately, in the last 2 years, we focused on Alabama, and we've done some seminars in Mobile, Birmingham, and in January we did one in Tuscaloosa, and the teachers absolutely love it. So we combine, a deep dive in the Socratic process of discussion, reading primary source documents from the time period in history in which it was written, and bringing together teachers from different viewpoints and backgrounds and getting them to talk to each other, to take a deeper dive into history, to learn how to make it more meaningful by looking at great works of art and having those dialogues that we just aren't having enough of today, so that people can share different perspectives and really debate and talk about issues that are of great importance to America right now.
Greatly stated. Yeah, and I think now
Now,
love
yes,
to-
would you like to comment? We would love to take your questions or
right in the-
what you thought about
if you would stand, that would be great. And let's see if we can hear you. Otherwise, we'll toss a mic down.
I'll use my playground voice.
Okay.
I am very proud of you. This was so innovative. The photography was amazing. Beautiful. And those of you that have always looked up to him got to really know all of that. And I am so grateful for you offering this. And I bet you, if you show it again, there won't be a secret. We're going to go back and talk about it. Everybody. So thanks again. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Yep,
Thank you.
we need help marketing.
Fabulous. Anyone else? Jordan. So the question was, how did the filmmaker and Susan, how did they decide which stories and interviews to really select, right? What was the process?
Yeah, I guess the way we kind of went about it was we wanted to get the facts out about his life, and we wanted to make sure we had a nice, entertaining story at the same time that you'd want to stay for 40 minutes and watch about his life, even if you knew him and enjoyed him. So there were so many stories. I guess on the average film, you usually film about 10 to 1. So for you have all this extra footage left over at the end, and I can tell you we have about, I don't even know how many hours, probably 20 hours of film, of interviews with people. So we could definitely do some follow-up little mini movies. Blooper, yeah, there were some blooper outtakes too. I mean, we had people laughing, there were tears, there were so many things. And it was a very tough decision, but thanks, Susan and I worked on it for, like I said, 6 years, basically, trying to whittle it down. And there was a lot of, discussion.
And one of the reasons it took us a while was I really wanted to go back and really research the history of his family. He had it in all different places, and I had to do a lot of research. They're coming here from
Decatur?
No, from Netherlands.
Okay.
Immigrating to New Netherlands, which was New York, and the evangelical preacher going out west, and his grandfather's brothers working in that grocery store to help pay for their education at Oberlin, and then they were wrapping those groceries in those big flat sheets of paper, and to have his grandfather, who loved origami, figure out how to make a flat-bottom brown paper bag. It always amazes people when they say, you knew the person, or you knew the person who was related to the person who invented that? It's just, but that whole story, and then the dyslexia and the death of the young life of Jack is sort of interesting because he had to, with dyslexia, and he had to bring himself up to fill his brother's shoes, who he adored. And we all can relate to that. We all know somebody who had some sort of a learning disability and how much of a challenge that can be. I don't think too many people know that about Jack, but he overcame a lot. Even though he had a lot of privileges, he overcame a lot, and he just gave back. He was one of those great generations, and I think that our youth today could learn about him and continue to be inspired by trying a little bit harder in spite of whatever difficulties life deals us. Moving paintings.
Well, I didn't really paint, but discussing, he went into detail, because I have a minor in art history, so, I knew a lot about the art. And we spent the entire day of how he collected it, how Alice Walton wanted those pieces, and it was just one of the most memorable days. I mean, it was just, I will never forget that day.
Thank you.
Well, I think it's really interesting that most collectors have an expert advisor that they rely on to help tell them whether something's really worth the money or not. Jack didn't. He trusted his own eye. He bought what he loved. He had that confidence, and that's rare.
You had a great eye. There's right here.
Yes, I was just so interested in how many facets there were to his life. He was almost like a modern Renaissance man. So I would encourage you to do all you can to have a biography written of him, which would go into more detail about so much that we didn't know about. Am I not correct that the original Queen City swimming pool here in Tuscaloosa was funded by the Warner family because of David?
Yes. Yes, that was his mother's decision. I think you're right. I mean, there's so much there for a book, but I think we felt that, finding the right author would have taken. Anyway, doing this film and knowing that people that spoke in the film were available to talk from the different perspectives about knowing him, we could cover his life as an athlete, his business experience through
The military.
the
The military experience alone is just a whole nother story. Like he didn't really. When my discussions with him, he didn't talk too much about it. But I didn't know he was. I knew he went to Burma and he talked about hiking through the mountains with donkeys a lot. But he didn't talk about the Mars Task Force and things like that. And really the hell he went through over there. And when we met the historian who was in the film, we learned so much about that whole division and what happened over there and everything. So, just all the different parts of his life, going to military school, it just, again, it was a big challenge trying to condense it into a film. It could have went on and on. I would love for somebody to write a book about him, if anybody knows any authors out there.
Those of you who were in the museum and knew about the painting Dawn Before Gettysburg, many of you probably saw that, but it was the Union soldiers sitting beside the roadside, a white picket fence behind them, and he loved that painting. It was by Hopper. And Jack would stand there, tears welling up in his eyes as he looked at it, and he said, "Look at them. They know half of them aren't coming back." He knew that, and he felt that because of his experience in World War II. You could just tell that it was, resonating with him emotionally.
My mom and dad were living in Washington, D.C. in 1957. That's where I was born, but in 1957, Jack hired my dad as an executive. But in jumping forward a few years, there are two things missing out of the film. memory that stands out, the film brought back thousands and thousands of memories for me. 'Cause I'm a part of the Gulf States family, that's all there is to it. And I wouldn't be standing here if it weren't for the Gulf States paper hiring my dad back then. But yeah,
Talk about Vaseline.
Basil Eade, you know, he died recently. His wife is still alive. They were going to come this weekend, but she's taken a turn for the worse. But his son, Philip Eade, I'm in contact with him, and they just still revere Jack. And, you know, Basil had he had a stroke halfway through his commission with Jack to paint all of the birds of North America. And I went to visit him after that stroke. Jack and I went, and he had started, his wife got upset with him and had him start painting with his left hand because he could no longer paint with his right hand. And he really did. We have a few, personally, we have a few paintings of Basil Eade's that he did with his left hand. But I guess we couldn't cover everything. And that collection still belongs to the Westervelt Company. And most of their, I really can't tell you, and Cade's not here, he would have been a good one to answer that question. As far as Mountbatten, again, we didn't have the access to the direct material or people such as you. I would have loved to have had somebody who was here when Lord Mountbatten came to be interviewed in the film. We could still add that, you know.
Oh, sure.
But, you know, so...
The sequel.
The sequel. So encourage those of you who have access or stories that we did not capture to get in touch with me, because we'd love to, it's a continuing love to just keep his legacy alive and to fill in some of those missing pieces.
I think that's a great place to end it, and to invite everyone to contact Susan to share more stories, because there certainly are many more out there.
We can take one last question if there is one.
Is there one more? There's one more here.
I'm curious if you've ever cataloged or know the number of works of art and artifacts that were part of the collection. What size?
The total number of his art collection? Oh, well, I also wanted, many of you may not know this, but when I first came to work with Jack in the museum, one of the things I did was we got very high resolution images of everything in the museum, in his collection. And those are now available digitally on our website. And it's www.warnerfoundation.org. And if you know, right now, you can access it by the artist we have all the paintings and the sculpture and a lot of films and footage. So I feel like we've kept it together as a collection in a virtual, you know, and I invite you all to view it.
Do you know how many pieces?
Oh, over 200.
There were, yeah, in paintings more than 200, but I think in terms of decorative arts and other objects on display in the museum, it was close to 700 works of art across media, yeah.
Yeah, with the furniture and the sculpture
And then that
and
doesn't
the
count the
china
company, yeah.
and silver.
Headquarters, the house. I mean, it's thousands. Yeah.
The company did continue to keep what they considered the core of the collection, which is still available to be viewed in the basement of the Westervelt headquarters building on Jack Warner Parkway. We have about 15 to 20 works of art that are still owned by the foundation that usually are on tour somewhere, and that information is usually available on our website where they're, and then I still have in my home in Lake Tuscaloosa about 10 or 12 great works of art, and I love to share them. So anytime we need to do a fundraiser for the arts or some worthy cause, let me know. We'll make that artwork available.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks, everyone, so much.